And okay, it is April 20, 2021 at 10:05. And I, Councilmember Tiffany D. Thomas, call this call to order and would like to virtually welcome all of my council colleagues, staff, and presenters in attendance. This meeting is being held virtually via Microsoft Teams due to COVID-19 protocols. This morning, we will hear a presentation from Mark Eichenbaum, a Special Assistant to the Mayor for Homeless Initiatives. If you can mute yourself, there's some feedback. Just to check your devices, please, colleagues. We will hear a presentation from Mark Eichenbaum, Special Assistant to the Mayor for Homeless Initiatives and the Housing and Community Development Department. He will present on the following. One, we have a really robust agenda today. So one, we'll have updates on the Community COVID-19 Homeless Housing Program, known as CCHHP, and the Encampment Decommissioning and Housing Strategy. Secondly, we'll hear from Public Services regarding recommendations to Council that extend first and second agreement amendments between the city and external entities. Please note that item numbers 3A, 3B, and 3C will be pulled for next month's HCA meeting. So please make an adjustment to your agenda if you printed it out before today. Thirdly, we'll have a report from multifamily regarding ordinances that recommends the approval of various contract agreements between the city and external entities. This will be presented by Deputy Assistant Director Ana Martinez and Administration and Manager Stephanie Wright. We'll have an update from Single Family, which will present ordinance recommendations for the appropriation and allocation of TERS funds for HCDD activities and development costs, presented by Deputy Director Anderson Stout. And lastly, we'll have director comments from Director Tom McCaslin. Remember, after each final presentation, we'll open the meeting for individuals who registered for public comments before Monday's 12 noon deadline. Today, we have two public comments, two individuals registered for public comments, and we will acknowledge them once we get to that portion. And so, colleagues, as we begin, after each division report, then we'll open the floor for comments. And so, without further ado, I would like to introduce Special Assistant to the Mayor for Homeless Initiatives, Mark Eichenbaum, to provide his presentation. Good morning. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for having me, Chairwoman Thomas.
Sure.
Last time I was with the committee, I previewed the exciting initiative, the COVID Homeless Housing Program, and went over all the steps that the city is taking during COVID to protect our most vulnerable individuals. Today, I wanted to come back and give you an update on that program, as well as preview some additional initiatives that program is going to be able, for the first time, enable the city to actually do. And these should pay off big dividends for our neighborhoods, for our communities, and for our constituents. So let me, if you can go back. No, you're good, Eli. I apologize. And Eli, is there a way you can show the whole document? The whole slide? So, well, there we go. So, and I apologize. The slides did not look like this when sent. The formatting, it looks like messed up some of the slides. But what this shows, this is a recap of the last one. We're doing many different programs right now, from vaccinations to testing to quarantine isolation facility to a prevention litter abatement program. But in all three tiers of our response for COVID, there is the COVID Homeless Housing Initiative. And that is our flagship response to COVID within the homeless community. Next slide. Next. Alrighty, so the goal of this initiative, once again, was to house 5,000 individuals that are currently homeless or will become homeless because of COVID. Once again, the CDC said it's imperative for cities to get individuals experiencing homelessness off the streets and out of the shelters as quickly as possible. Additionally, new individuals that become homeless because of COVID, because of the economic impacts of the pandemic, we do not want to go into a congregate facility, nor do we want them to be on the streets. So that's what the program is really designed for. It's a 2-year program, but most of the housing will happen in that first year. It's a joint project between the city and the county. Both of of the local jurisdictions are putting money into this. We have put in some Treasury dollars, but then the bulk of the money is COVID-specific HUD funding that comes through the Housing Department. And this is, at the end of the day, we truly look at housing as our control response to pandemics or to infectious diseases. It is key. When folks are off the streets, then we don't have to worry about all the triage mechanisms of the sheltering and the hygiene and everything else that comes in it. If they have a place that they can quarantine in, a place of their own. Next slide. So there's 3 components of it. There's the bridge to PSH. These are your most vulnerable individuals, primarily people that are going to be on the streets. They've been homeless for an extended period of time, and they have a disability. The rapid rehousing program is for those that are less acute. It's short-term rental assistance. We don't cut people off cold turkey. There's case managers that work with them, and while our assistance decreases, their responsibility increases. These are typically your able-bodied individuals. And the last component is the diversion. This is the region's first foray into prevention work. These are individuals that become homeless who are literally knocking on the door of the shelter. Obviously, we don't want them there. Diversion is what helps them. Sometimes it's rental assistance. Sometimes it's conflict resolution, talking to the mom to let the daughter stay in the house, for instance. But that's our first foray in prevention. And you can see the services match the acuity of the individuals. Next slide. Alrighty, so I'll tell you, the Housing Department has a much better decision tree and map for you. And there's many ways you can look at it. But it's integrated assistance. So you take this program along with the eviction prevention rental assistance program that the city and the county are running, and our housing department is taking the lead on. So if the individual is homeless, then it's through the CHIP program, through that PSH or rapid rehousing program. If they're not literally homeless right now, then the question is, are they evicted or facing eviction? If they're facing eviction, that's that rental assistance program. Let's prevent them from being evicted. But if they were just evicted and they're going to become homeless, then that's when they go through the diversion program. Next slide. So, $65 million initiative, and the city's putting in more than the county because the city got a lot more federal funds for this. But the vast majority of it is all federal dollars. The little that's not is some private dollars that the system's been raising locally. Next slide. Alrighty, so here's the update. How are we doing? So in by March, I can tell you today we're over 2,000 individuals housed. So let's look at that red line. That red line to me is the most important line. That is where we would be without these funds and without this program. We were housing, roughly around 50 some odd individuals a month in the entire region. And now it has been increased exponentially. We started off a little bit slow, going through the contract process and the council process, but now we've hit our stride. That blue line is where we need to be to match, to reach our 5,000 goal. And you can see in March, we actually hit that line, and our projection, the gray area, shows that we will be above where we need to be to hit that goal. Next slide. When we break it out into 2 programs, here's that rapid rehousing program. These are for, a lot of times they're people in shelters or their families. It can be individuals who are more able-bodied, less vulnerable. In March, we're up to nearly 1,000 individuals. And we hit the trend line where we need to be to reach the goal. And once again, look at that red line, where we would be without these dollars. Next slide. And here is the permanent supportive housing piece. These are for the most vulnerable individuals. Once again, we are way above the pace we'd be without these dollars. And we are actually trending above where we need to be. So much so that we're probably going to be pumping the brakes just a little bit so that we can make sure to conserve some of these resources that are set to expire basically in September. We want to conserve them so that we can use them in concentrated strategic efforts, such as with encampments. Next slide. So here's a number of individuals we were placing into homeless individuals we were placing on a monthly basis. Averaging, you see in September, we were 58. We jumped up, we more than doubled it in those first 2 startup months, and now you can really see. We had a little dip in February, and that was because of the freeze. That took us offline for a week and a half. But it's nearly increased the number of individuals we've housed tenfold, which is incredible. We have been saying for a while, unlike most cities, Houston has a system of 100 different partners that can house very vulnerable individuals. What it's been missing for years is the gas to make that machine operate. Because of these federal COVID dollars, it is finally getting those gas, and you can see the engine is operating and delivering for us. Next slide. So it's not only housed more individuals, but it's also reduced the amount of time it's taking to house folks. So you can see in both of those permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing programs, it is cut in half the amount of time it's taking for us to house folks from referral to lease up. Next. Location prior to enrollment, and I'm sorry, once again, all these slides have formatted in the conversion to PDF document. So I apologize, but you can see here, the light blue is unsheltered, the red is sheltered, the gray is housed. Whoa, I thought these are homeless people. Why for that 17% housed? Because remember, this includes the diversion prevention program. And so that 17% represents the clients that are being served in a diversion program. They're housed, we're trying to keep them housed. Next slide. And here's a breakout by ethnicity and race of the individuals that are being served. So the blue, African American, the orangish red, Latino, the yellow mustard color is Anglo, and the gray is mixed race and others. This is trending very similar to when we look at the racial makeup of our homeless population in Houston. So, it's predominantly serving individuals of color, and this is how the homeless system responds to inequities that are out there. It's hard for us to prevent it, but how we can respond to it is by making up for it and really housing these individuals who have been disproportionately affected. Next slide. So to bring it on home, this is just one example. This is Donna Sue, really, you were supposed to just see the before photo, and then that after photo was going to be the aha moment for you, but you'll see them side to side. But the photo on the left is Donna in our Winter Storm Uri warming shelter at the GRB. She was afraid she was going to freeze to death. She was living with 3 dogs in a tent on a bayou. She's been homeless on and off for 20 years. She is 60 years old, and she wandered into downtown. She didn't even know about the shelter. She found her way. She got in line. She got inside. She told us about her 3 dogs. Bark employees went while it was below freezing, rappelled down into the bayou, and rescued her dogs and reunited them with Donna Sue at the GRB. At the GRB, Donna is one of the 200 plus individuals that we assessed for housing and got them on the path to being permanently housed. It's not always this fast, but in this instance, 2 weeks later, this is Donna Sue moving in to her own unit. She's there today, and it took a massive effort of lots of entities with Harmony House doing the final housing navigation. But that's the reason we do this. This is the human face that we don't always see. Next slide. So this CHIP program, the COVID homeless housing program, is allowing us to do things we never would have done before. Federal regulations say if we're using federal dollars, we have to do it based on vulnerability and not visibility. So often we're housing people throughout the city, but they're not the folks you may see, because it might be the vulnerable person behind the Home Depot who's the most vulnerable. And so what these resources are allowing us to do is really focus on everybody. And for the first time, we can really do a targeted strategy to decommission encampments and do it the right way through housing. CDC regulations say we should not be shutting down encampments during a pandemic unless we are offering them a housing alternative. Additionally, we can just go and offer shelter to folks. 2% of people in the encampment will take us up on the effort. Where do the 98% of the people go? They just move over further into the community or to the next street. With housing, 85 to 90% of the people say yes, and they are off the streets permanently. That's what we want. This is the gold standard. Next slide. So we've started doing a pilot program. So this is 500 Fannin. People refer to it as Cardboard City. It was been there for a couple years. Next slide. Here we go. And here is the after. Where did these people go? There were actually some concerned citizens out there that asked us. They went into housing. Next slide. Here we go. Out of the 11 individuals there, 10 were housed, 91%. And while it takes a lot of effort to pull together all the resources and do all the pre-work, everybody, once all that was assembled, everybody was housed in just a matter of days. Next slide. So we said, let's work on a different location. This was very few people, but in a very, very dangerous spot. We call it the Triangle. This is a U of H, downtown right here. This is the on-ramp onto 45 North. This is the off-ramp of I-10 coming from the west. For people living in this triangle, you literally had to walk on the freeway to access it. Very dangerous. Here's the before photo. Next. Here's the after photo. Once again, we didn't push them onto another neighborhood. We didn't push them a block over. They were all housed, and it allowed us to clean the area and shut it down. Next slide. So here's Allen Parkway. This is one of our larger encampments, 53 individuals. Once again, people are having to walk on a highway on-ramp to access this location. Here's the before photo, and here's the after. Slide. There you go. And to show you some, where did all these individuals go? You'll see 85% of them were housed. We're still working on 4%. So only 3 individuals of the 53 were not interested. But you know, this is how it's done. This is huge. HUD has realized what we're doing here is special. Houston is really, every city has encampments, but no city has figured out how to effectively manage or decommission them. Houston is pioneering this, and because of that, HUD is providing somebody to just study what we're doing and write a report so that other cities throughout the nation can duplicate what we create here in Houston. Next slide. You know, this just shows you, but not everybody was the most vulnerable living in an encampment. It was about half and half. Half the individuals were chronically homeless or most vulnerable for permanent supportive housing, and half were less vulnerable, qualifying for the rapid rehousing program. Next slide. So here's some more photos of that. Next. Next, we saw that. And next, this is another area, same area of the Allen Parkway, before, after. And for good measure, we'll do one more, before and after. And then to show you what goes into this is that, you know, this was a 3.5-week initiative, but 2.5 weeks was scouting, assembling all the units, doing the inspections, working on the paperwork, and then the system, being led by the Coalition for the Homeless, spends that 1 week actually moving people into housing. We're getting parking lots, or setting up stations. Metro's providing a fleet of buses to move people into housing. Next. Outreach is working, and housing navigators are working with those clients. Then after people are moved in this case, the management district came and cleaned up. We try to use management districts where they're available. If there is no management district, we would use solid waste then. Next slide. And then, you know, we have to respect individuals' personal property rights. And so these housing navigators are really working with the individuals to say, what is trash? What needs to be stored, and what do you want to go with you when you move into your unit? So much so, see this red circle? That's a tag on it saying that the person's tent, the person who had the tent, said it was trash. And so we want to just make sure that, once again, we're respecting those rights and we're staying on the right side of the law. Next slide. It really takes, as the mayor calls it, a Herculean effort. And I make it sound, these before and after photos make things look really, really easy, and it's not. It took a ton of different entities. It's very resource intense. And we're going to look to duplicate this, but it's not immediate. It's all hands on deck in a very short amount of time. And once again, none of these encampment photos I would have shown you would have been done without the funding of the COVID dollars going through the housing department. Next slide. So the key lessons here is, as I talked about, the key when decommissioning any encampment is to do it in a way that will prevent displacement. When you just displace people, it's a never-ending cat or mouse game. It uses up all of your police resources. It uses up all the resources of our homeless system, and it's a waste of the financial resources the city is investing into these efforts. Every encampment has its own DNA, and I mean, we're finding that out. The folks in every encampment are very different. The amount of time, the strategies, we have a kind of a base plan, and then we have to tailor it around that specific encampment. We are running into size limitations. We have 53 individuals. Encampments that are larger, we're going to need additional space and come up with new tools of doing it. And the reason is because it takes so long to house them. New people just move in, and your community doesn't see any net gain. And we want to do it to where people can see and feel a difference. We are working right now on taking these lessons and making an entire encampment plan for the city. We have encampments throughout the city. I mean, we know them. Some only have 2 people, some have 100 people. The question is not if we will get to an encampment in your district, because we anticipate having enough dollars to get to all the encampments. The current dollars we have and new dollars that will be coming in. The only question is when, and we're coming up with a timeline and a path to do that. Scalability is huge. You know, it takes all these resources. It takes a ton of time. We're pulling folks off of other assignments. When we want to bring this to scale and keep on doing this every single month throughout the city, then it's really increasing the number of our resources and teams and strategies. And the last thing I'll mention is that we got to keep this in mind. We're housing so many folks that there are some really challenging folks at the end of the day. These are people with usually violent felonies who are just released out of jail, where no landlord would ever take them. And then there are individuals who are sex offenders.
Right.
If we cannot figure out a way or where these people can live, we will be to the point in the future where the only folks on the streets are sex offenders and individuals with difficult criminal histories. That's not the case right now, but if we don't figure this out as a city right now, that's where we will be. Next slide. And so that wraps up the update. That was just one program. My office is working on a ton of different programs right now, and I look forward to going over some of them in the future with you. I really want to thank the housing department from Director McCaslin and Ray and Melody and all their teams. The fate of our response to encampments, as well as reducing homelessness in Houston and making sure it does not get worse, really lies in their hands. And their ability to provide the funding has been key. We really thank them. And once again, I thank all council members for their continued support and patience.
Well, thank you, Mr. Eichenbaum. And as we briefed, I shared privately how impressive this work is, and I often share with Director McCaslin how this work doesn't get the same attention around rent relief or housing projects, and y'all are quietly working and doing the work. And so I thank you for the update. Before I check the queue for questions, I do want to acknowledge colleagues that are joining. We have Vice Mayor Pro Tem Martha Castex Tatum, Councilmember Carolyn Evans Shabazz, Councilmember Tarsha Jackson, Councilmember Amy Peck, and of course, our wonderful Vice Chair, David Robinson. You'll be hearing from him shortly. And we have staff representation from Councilmember Kamen's office and Councilmember Cisneros. So thank you all for joining, and Councilmember Alcorn's office as well. So thank you all for joining. So we do have a question in the queue from Vice Chair David Robinson.
Well, thank you so much, Chair. And Mark, what an impressive presentation. I think the accolades you're receiving are great, and what better testimony than they're here from HUD to record our process. I don't know of a higher compliment. You did mention that what we're working with here is COVID dollars, and that's a wonderful use of resources, as I can imagine and understand it. If we're writing the book on this, what do we do when that goes away? I know you're thinking about it, and maybe the proof will justify further expense, but tell me what your thoughts are about that.
No, I appreciate the question. I think we've known for a long way the really key is sustainable long-term funding. And the city of Houston, while homelessness is one of the top priorities for the mayor, when we look at the budget, it's hard to find the money to scrape together. We spend the least amount of money on homelessness than any other major city in the country. I often tell folks I would give up $100 federal dollars for just one local dollar. And the reason is the federal dollars are highly restrictive on who we can serve, how we can serve. We're very grateful for them, and it's what we have. But it doesn't provide the flexibility always that a system demands. So, I would look at Austin, for instance. One thing is Austin just announced last week that they are following Houston's lead, and they have modeled an encampment decommissioning housing strategy off of Houston's that is aiming to house 3,000 people in 3 years. And I wish them the best of luck. But Austin puts in $60 million every year of local funds. Homelessness is complex, and homelessness is expensive. It's more expensive not to do anything, though. So when we house somebody who's chronically homeless, who will never be able to work, we just can't house them and then check. We have to keep on paying for the housing every single year. Now, it's less expensive to do that than have them on the streets, but we have to have a sustainable funding source where we can keep them housed year after year after year. So really looking forward how we can, get long-term sustainable local funding is really going to be key.
Okay, I think you've answered my question, but you didn't really give me an answer, which I appreciate because it's a tough one. Of course, what Austin's doing proves the point that imitation is the highest form of flattery. So again, well done, and look forward to further success. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we have Councilmember Jackson in the queue for a question.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Mark, for this great presentation. I have one question. I know we have a housing issue in the city of Houston, so where are we actually housing these people? That's what I'm curious.
No, that's a great question. So we house them in apartment complex throughout the region. So, the housing department really invests in some great affordable supportive housing projects. And I tell you, when a supportive housing project comes online, there is nothing that helps energize the system. I mean, we can move folks very quickly, but we don't have enough time nor money to build all the housing we need. So we go out to the open market and we find scattered site apartment units throughout the region. Sometimes it might be an apartment where we only get 1 unit. Some it might be where we have 20 units. It could be your neighbor in an apartment complex that was formerly homeless. And so that's what we really utilize. We are using when we need some kind of an apartment incentives and to try to incentivize landlords. Additionally, we have a staff at the Coalition for the Homeless whose entire job is to do landlord engagement. So they are out there hitting the pavement, making relationships, trying to get landlords to be part of our program and to make sure that all those landlords' needs are being met so that they stay part of the program and they maybe increase their participation. I want to remind folks, the eviction rate of our clients is lower than it is the general population. And for landlords, they get one check for all their clients. They just have to be willing to lease it to our folks.
And second question, so have we ever considered investing in, I guess, abandoned hotel to use, where the city specifically owned this particular property to bring as a transfer center for folks that we're trying to get into stable housing?
Yeah, so, we are looking at different options right now. I can tell you cities such as Chicago, Denver, Dallas, and Austin all used COVID dollars to purchase motels that they're actually turning into supportive housing. Since the city was doing it by the end of December last year, before the extension was created, it would have been impossible for us to acquire and put in operation in a matter that quickly. And so, but I think that's on the table, and that's one thing that we're actively considering right now.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your good work.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Wonderful. And this is a great segue to our public services. We have assistant, excuse me, Mark, we don't have any other questions in the queue for you.
No, but if I can just mention 1 second, sure. Is that, I appreciate all the compliments, but at the end of the day, it's really for our system. We have an amazing nonprofits and agencies that are out there, and they have shared goals and shared solutions, and they're working together on this. And that's the reason why we're having success right now and why we'll have success in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you for those comments. And this is a good segue to our public services, and just to acknowledge Assistant Deputy Director Melody Barr and her team facilitating the relationships with the third-party entities and expanding our nonprofit partnerships to do this work. And I don't know if, and hopefully you will remember, but bump this up several months ago, several agreements came before this committee and were ultimately voted by us to expand those nonprofits to help with some mitigation around homelessness. And so they're up next to share more of their amazing work. I just wanted to publicly acknowledge her and her team for making sure that they're standing this up in addition to the rent relief, in addition to their daily portfolio. Assistant Deputy Director Barr, are you with us?
Thank you. Yes, I'm here. Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. I will be presenting one item this morning, item 3D. The remaining items A, B, and C, will be presented before this committee in May. So we'll go to item 3D. The department is presenting a second contract amendment with a Caring Safe Place to finance the operation and administration of 2 community residences serving persons living with HIV and AIDS. Community residence number 1 will serve a minimum of 15 individuals, many with a history of chemical and/or alcohol dependency, through permanent supportive housing units. Community residence number 2 will serve a minimum of 30 individuals with a history of chemical and/or alcohol dependency through transitional housing units. And it should just be noted, transitional housing units are typically no more than 24 months of residency. Support services provided at both locations include, but not limited to, case management, substance abuse, and mental health counseling, life skills training, and job search. A Caring Safe Place has received funding from the City of Houston since 1999. This funding request is in the amount of $793,049.89 to be specific. As of February 2021, the program has expended approximately 80% of their funding, and it is anticipated that all funds will be fully expended by May 31st of 2021. The program has achieved 75% of their service goal to date, and it is anticipated that they will get close to their goal. This concludes my presentation. I'm willing to take any questions.
We currently don't have any questions in the queue. This is their second amendment or their first?
This would be their second amendment. So this would be a third year.
Okay. Okay. I don't see any questions in the queue. I think this is one of the few times you've only had one item to present. So this is, usually we have a healthy portfolio from you. So this is good. No other questions?
Don't worry, I'll come back really strong in May.
I'm sure about it. Thank you very much. All right, next up we have our multifamily presentation. And Deputy Assistant Director Anna Martinez and Administration Manager Ms. Stephanie Wright. Are y'all ready to present?
We're ready.
All right.
Good morning, Anna Martinez, Deputy Assistant Director of Multifamily. I'll be presenting 3 items related to our new affordable housing developments and 1 item related to our multifamily buyout program. First is item 4A, Richmond Senior. Richmond Senior is one of 16 affordable housing projects selected in the multifamily Harvey Disaster Recovery Round 2 NOFA. Approximately $170 million in DR17 funding is being committed through this round, bringing about 1,900 affordable housing units to the city. HCD is recommending approval of $15.5 million in CDBG DR17 funds for a contract between the city, Richmond Senior Village, and Brownstone Affordable Housing for the construction of a 125-unit affordable housing development to be located at 5615 Richmond Avenue, which is located in District J. The development will serve low to moderate income senior households 55 years and older between 30 and 60% AMI for an affordability period of 40 years. The 1.8 acre development will consist of a 4-story podium style development. It represents an opportunity to provide affordable housing in an area that has not seen affordable housing in at least the last 15 years. The total development cost is approximately $36 million. Brownstone Affordable Housing has over a decade of multifamily experience using tax credits, CDBG-DR, home and conventional financing. Brownstone has completed 58 multifamily developments consisting of over 7,000 rental units. And that concludes my presentation on this project. Would you like me to continue or pause for questions?
Can you go back to the second slide, please? This one. Okay. I had missed the AMI, so it's 30, 50, 60. Okay. Perfect. I don't have any questions in the queue for this one, so you can complete your whole multifamily and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, perfect. So item 4B, Sunrise Lofts. HCD is recommending approval of a $1 million, $560,000 grant and home investment partnership funds for a contract between the city and the Tejano Center for Community Concerns for the acquisition of land and construction of an 89-unit affordable housing development to be located at 3103 McKinney Street, which is located in District I. The development will provide permanent supportive housing for young adults who are vulnerable, high risk, homeless, and aging out of the foster care system. The approximately 1.9 acre development will consist of efficiency 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments for young adults ages 18 to 25. The development will include a 20-year affordability period, which commences at construction completion. The loan will be non-amortizing throughout the construction and affordability period. For over 28 years, the Tejano Center has been providing a broad range of social, health, and educational programs addressing the pressing needs of Houston's East End community. Tejano Center was established in 1992 in the East End and has owned and operated a youth shelter and foster care program since the mid-90s. Total project budget here is $23 million. And that concludes that presentation. I'll move over to the next. Item 4C, 3300 Caroline. 3300 Caroline is one of 16 affordable units, affordable housing projects selected through the Harvey Round 2, similar to the Richmond Senior Project I presented just a while ago. HCD is recommending approval of a $15 million CDBG DR17 fund contract between the city, the NHP Foundation, and Magnificat House, Inc. for the construction of a 149-unit supportive housing development to be located at 3300 Caroline in Council District D. This is the type of supporting project that ties into the work that Mark Eichenbaum is doing that he talked about today. These units will be available for the clients that he's looking to serve. The development will serve low to moderate income persons between the 30 to 60% AMI for an affordability period of 40 years. 4-story development represents an opportunity to provide affordable housing in an area which is transit oriented within walking distance to light rail and several major bus lines, enabling key access to neighborhood services and employment opportunities for the tenants. Total development cost is approximately $41 million. Magnificat House has been a part of the community since 1968 and has offered alternatives to the streets by providing shelters and meals. Their partnership with NHP, which is a national affordable housing developer, will allow Magnificat Housing an opportunity to build capacity in their organization. And that completes that presentation. And I'll pause there since that's the last of the new developments in case there's any questions before I move over to the buyout.
No questions for this section. We can move on.
Okay.
If not, we'll catch them at the end.
Okay. Item 4D, the Biscayne apartment acquisition. The department is proposing an ordinance approving an agreement for a purchase option between the city and AMG City View for the acquisition of the property located at 17030 and 17050 Imperial Valley, located in District B. This acquisition is a part of our 2017 Harvey multifamily buyout program. This property meets program criteria in that it is located in a floodway. It's just north of Rains Bayou. It was impacted by 2017 flood events and has had repetitive loss. It also was flooded in the 2015 and 2016 flood events. It'll be a part of the Resilient Houston plan for Greens Point, which is being led by the Resiliency and Recovery offices with the help of Houston Public Works. Over 40% of Houston properties in the floodway are located in the Greens Point area. This acquisition will offer opportunities to deliver drainage, green space, and restoration projects for the community. The purchase price is $32 million, which was determined by an independent appraisal, with an additional $1.1 million budgeted for due diligence, which will include survey, environmental, and other closing costs. The property is approximately 19.8 acres and has 560 units, which are approximately 97% occupied. The department is currently working on the relocation plan and will be working directly with tenants to ensure they are relocated in accordance with the Uniform Relocation Act. Once the property is acquired and all tenants are relocated, the complex will be demolished. Final plans are still pending. They're being worked through with Public Works, but the intention will be that restrictions will be placed so that on the deed of the property, it will allow no new structures to be developed. It'll be used for either green space, possibly recreation space, or just green space for the community. We expect that this will be presented to City Council in May. Mm-hmm. And that concludes that presentation.
Okay, we don't have any questions in the queue regarding multifamily.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Wright, who's going to be presenting the remaining multifamily agenda items. Those are proposed amendments to existing affordable housing developments. I'll let her take it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie Wright from the Multifamily Loan Servicing section. The next three items are amendments to existing and functioning properties. I'd like to say up front that on all of the three items, there's no additional funding required. There's no adverse impact to the city, and all of the property owners are compliant with the requirements on the current loan. Okay, I'll get started. The first item is HCDD is recommending council approval of an ordinance authorizing the First Amendment to the amended and restated agreement between the city and Nautical Affordable Housing and Houston 510 Griggs Road Residential to refinance the senior loan on Linda Vista, on Village at Palm Center Apartments, and to amend and modify the amended agreement. If approved, the rate on the new senior loan will decrease from 4.28% to 3.38% and will increase the annual net operating income by $200,000 a year. In consideration for this amendment, the city will receive a $200,000 modification fee at the loan closing. We will receive $7,000 per year as the annual compliance fee. Mm-hmm. And as I said before, no additional funding and no adverse impact to the city. I can move on to number 2 if there's no questions.
No questions. Yeah, you can go ahead and complete the whole section, and then we'll come back if there's questions.
Okay. So again, we're recommending approval of an ordinance authorizing a compliance agreement between the city The Life at DeSoto, who's the new owner of Linda Vista Apartments, to facilitate the sale of the property, create a mechanism to release a lien associated with the current owner, who is 555 Linda Vista, and allow new financing for a major rehab of Linda Vista Apartments, which is located at 5500 DeSoto Street in Northwest Houston. The new agreement will allow for forgiveness of the performance-based loan and the deed of trust associated with the current owner. There are 2 years remaining in the before the loan matures and affordability expires. The Life of DeSoto will enter a compliance agreement with the city in which all the remaining program requirements will be in effect until the city affordability expires in 2 years. Life of DeSoto will then secure financing in excess of $67 million to complete a major construction rehab. At completion of the rehab, they will add another 15 years of affordability on the property. 2 of those years will be an overlap with the city's affordability, so we will gain 13 years of affordability. This will be a substantial revision, replacing major systems and addressing deferred maintenance. The new owners have agreed to pay a $9,940 annual compliance fee, and they will prepay a loan modification of $25,000 if they ask for a modification prior to the affordability ending. And the last one is we're requesting an ordinance of authorizing a First Amendment to the amended and restated agreement between Nautical Affordable Housing and Houston 510 Griggs Road to refinance the senior lien on the Village at Palm Center and amend and modify the loan agreement.
Can you hold on one second? Right. I think the slides are different from what you are reporting out. Can we make sure that we're all on track so people can follow?
Ms. Wright, I think you were about to go on the Houston Heights Tower. You've already covered Village at Palm Center.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's the Houston Heights Tower. That's the next slide.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Okay, just bear with me a moment.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, here we go. So I'm sorry, start over. And we're requesting approval of an ordinance authorizing a Fifth Amendment to the agreement between the city and Houston Heights Tower to refinance the senior lien and amend and modify the Fourth Amendment to the loan agreement. If approved, the rate on the new senior loan will decrease from 5.5% to 4.1% and will result in increased annual net operating income by $9,700. As consideration for this, HCDD will receive $5,000, $40,000 a year in annual compliance fee. The owner has agreed to limit contributions or income over 1.5, over the 1.5 debt ratio will be replaced in a reserve account. They've agreed to a prepayment fee of $25,000 if there are future loan modifications. That concludes my presentation.
Wonderful. We don't have any questions, but Director McCaslin, just as a courtesy, can you share with the committee the model about the refinancing and how with Linda Vista and these other properties and the benefit with this method. Director McCaslin.
I'm sorry. I think I am now off mute. Thank you for the invitation and for your attention on this. As Mark so passionately shared early on, the work that we do with affordable homes throughout the city, especially the rental affordable homes, is tied directly back to our ability to house folks who become homeless and to help people never fall into homelessness. While we have a lot of new products coming forward, one of the key aspects of Ms. Wright's work is to ensure that these remain homeless for the next 30 and now 40 years, which is a new standard for our department.
Right.
And so what we're bringing forward is opportunities to make these properties more stable with our refinancing that reduces the interest rate they're paying, shores up their reserve deposits. And one of the things I will flag, if you were following the Chronicle story about tax credits and other HUD-funded products who were falling into disrepair, not keeping up with the maintenance, a lot of that goes back to making sure that those properties have a sufficiently large reserve to ensure that they are never in that position. And so that's the oversight work that Ms. Wright does, that Ray Miller, Anna Martinez, and their team do to ensure that we are not just when we invest the money protecting the taxpayer, but and protecting that taxpayer investment for the next 40 years. And so a lot of the transactions that we are bringing forward, I think that there will be a few more that you'll see over the coming months as we get caught up on the legal side of the work, right, is to ensure that not just when it's brand new, but at 10 years, 20 years, and even all the way through 40 years, these homes are contributing to the bank of homes that can be affordable for folks at all income levels. Because Councilmember Jackson is absolutely right. Houston is at the bottom. There's only one large city in the top largest cities in the United States that have fewer homes available for people who are at that poverty level. Or lower. And I think Las Vegas is the only city that's below us. Every other major city has more than we do. The city of Houston has 19 homes available for every 100 families living at or below the poverty level.
And thank you for that. And I wanted to just bump this up to colleagues and those who are listening. So once they see these amendments to these finance options, that they can connect it to the overall housing strategy of the city. And it's not just financial packages and numbers, but there's a method to the madness per se. We do have a comment from Councilmember Amy Peck.
Thank you, Chair. And just really quickly, Linda Vista is actually in District A, not B. I just wanted to make sure that the Housing Department has it reflected correctly, because I think the slide said that it was in B. Thank you.
And thank you, Councilmember Peck. I saw that as it was coming through, and I knew that DeSoto went into your area and had it as something to flag, but I'm glad you corrected it.
All right, next question we have from Councilmember Robinson.
And thank you, Chair. Having been out on that border district area with Council Members Peck and Jackson this past weekend for a food distribution event, let me say that is a great part of Houston and warrants the claim of any district council member and all of us at large. So anyway, that's not my comment. My question, Director, for you, it's a little bit like the question I asked Mark Eichenbaum, and these refinancing opportunities that we're having, just wondering if that, like what Mark was presenting, that is the result of available COVID dollars, whether some of these refinancing opportunities have come out of the recent market where
yes,
rates have been incredibly low, but are moving upward rather quickly now. And I'm wondering if we're, in your opinion, coming to the end of an opportunity or a window for some of these refinancing opportunities, or whether there's other leverage that we have in the changing market.
We're always going to see those changes, and you're absolutely right. With historic lows on the interest rates, and as the expectation is that those interest rates are going to increase, you are seeing folks wanting to lock in those rates while they can. And the key for us is ensuring that we are not over subsidizing. And I want to go back to who our primary customer is. And it's a conversation we're having internally. While the developers of affordable homes are important stakeholders for us, our primary customer is the family who needs the affordable home. Right. And so we're not running our program to make developers rich. It's a tough market out there, but if there's an opportunity for folks to take our money and then later come back and refinance in a way that earns them millions, we have a say on where those millions get spent. Otherwise, they can repay us the money that we put in the first place. That is our obligation to you as people safeguarding taxpayer dollars. So, to go back to your original question, Councilmember Robinson, as we see a changing market, it is not all doom and gloom. We are staffing up to be able to operate at this higher level that we've been at for the next year. When I got here, you'd frequently see years when the city housing department would spend $70, $80, $90 million in the course of an entire fiscal year. If we stay on track to where we are today, we will be getting very, very close to having $300 million of assistance go out throughout the city for affordable homes. So $70 million versus $300 million. And we have not quadrupled our team. Our team has doubled over the course of those years, but has not quadrupled. And we have done that in the middle of COVID, in the middle of telecommuting, and in the middle of some difficult disputes with other governmental entities that are some of our funders. And so this is an opportunity for us as we look forward with a new administration in DC that has put the correction of decades upon decades of racial inequality as a high priority, and has put the provision of affordable homes throughout our country as a high priority. So Mark is right, there is more money coming, and affordable housing, the provision of an affordable home for every resident, is something that is completely doable if we properly respect human dignity and if we properly respect labor. So we can execute on this. Mark's presentation has proven that Houston has the ecosystem to execute on this if the funding's there. Once the funding was there, we quickly pivoted and made this happen. So we're ready to work with you to ensure that every funding source that's available comes in and gets out effectively and quickly into the hands of Houstonians.
Well, one follow-up comment, Madam Chair, and that's Director, to say with our addressing the needs of 19 of the 100 Houstonians below AMI that need the housing, and second to last, as you point out, with Las Vegas being the only one, presumably the folks at HUD are not writing a chapter of a book yet about that. So I know we've left ourselves room for improvement, but I'd love to know, as our needle continues to improve, what we're doing and how quickly we can chip into that deficit that we've got. And obviously there's many, many more people that we need to address.
And I will say that no city has this figured out. The best cities are providing it to approximately half of the folks, 48 out of 100, 49 out of 100. And those are a couple of cities in the Northeast. No city has this figured out. No city is the model for how to serve the lowest income in their community. And, I say this about Houston, we may be late to the game, but once we set our mind to it, we can do anything. And so even that challenge is something that we can crack.
I appreciate those points of clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair.
For sure, absolutely, definitely was helpful. And so as we continue the conversation about affordable housing, I would like to welcome Deputy Director Anderson Stout for our single family presentation. Mr. Stout, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Council members. I'll make the presentation for single family and we can get started. The first item says appropriation, an ordinance authorizing the appropriation of $100 million in previously budgeted tax increment reinvestments zone affordable housing funds to the single family home buyer choice program, home buyer assistance program, and new home development program to administer affordable home activities serving low to moderate income households in the Houston area. The Home Buyer Choice Program provides income-eligible Houstonians with up to $150,000 in financial assistance toward the purchase of a home. In partnership with the Houston Community Land Trust, the Home Buyer Choice Program will assist in expediting home sales, providing affordable housing options, and securing new homes for low to moderate income families in Houston. The Home Buyer Assistance Program provides up to $30,000 in down payment assistance to income-eligible first-time home buyers to purchase a home within the incorporated areas of the city. And the New Home Development Program provides newly constructed affordable single-family homes for low to moderate income qualified home buyers on scattered sites and large tract contiguous land for the development of multiple single-family properties for sale. On January 6, 2021, by ordinance number 2021-17, Council approved the appropriation of $112,860,000 in TIRS affordable housing funds to implement the fiscal years 2021 through 2025 operating budget, capital improvement plan budget, and to provide $100 million in funding for affordable housing programs pursuant to the zone's project plan. Mm-hmm. The Uptown Development Authority will receive $12,860,000 in TIRS funds. $12,860,000. Sorry, Chairwoman. $12,860,000 in TIRS funds for debt services. And for direct program activities, specific contracts will be brought to Council for allocation in accordance with local procurement rules. A brief description of each TIRS funding category follows. For the Home Buyer Choice Program, it will be $52,787,500. For New Home Development Program, it will be $46,717,500. And for our Home Buyer Assistance Program, it will be $495,000. And we can see the corresponding homes that will be produced as a result of those investments from the City of Houston Housing Department.
Very good.
And Chairwoman, if I, Madam Chair, if I could just flag our Home Buyer Assistance Program, as folks will recall, is primarily funded right now out of our Disaster Recovery 17 funds. Because that only covers folks who were renters at in Houston at the time of Harvey, this is really a backup source of funding for families who may not otherwise qualify, but because of that limitation, but would otherwise qualify for the program. So this is not our primary funding source. I just want to flag that. There's another $30 million out there that's going towards this activity.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Right, next slide. And as we move into next item that I'm presenting, which is Robbins Landing, which actually is in District B, not E. I just want to state that we do already have a pilot program. So before I actually make the presentation, just providing visibility. Named the Town Park Development in Northeast Houston, which is actually a 36-acre master plan community, which has a total of 173 total homes, with approximately 83 of those designated for affordable homes to go to income qualified home buyers. So I flagged this to state that Robbins Landing is very similar to that development. And as we move into large tract development, these are the types of development that we will be pursuing. And as a result, we will be bringing more of those for City Council for approval. That being said, an ordinance authorizing the allocation of $4,793,228 in previously appropriated TIRZ affordable housing funds for a loan agreement between the City of Houston and Robbins Landing, LLC, a wholly owned subsidiary of Houston Habitat for Humanity. The loan will be used towards the infrastructure costs for the Robbins Landing development. The Robbins Landing will be located on the northeast side of Houston between Mesa Drive to the west and C.E. King Parkway to the east. For a major freeway, that would be I-69 also to the west and Beltway 8 to the east. The main access point is via Tidwell Road, which bisects the site. The development will be a 127-acre mixed-use, mixed-income master plan community.
Mm-hmm.
Robbins Landing will include a total of 468 single-family homes, approximately 200 units of senior residences, 200 units of multifamily homes, and approximately 20 acres of mixed-use development. The community will also include 12 acres of Central Park that will preserve large groves of trees and trails. Per the terms of the loan agreement, Robbins Landing is required to designate at least 260 of the 468 single-family homes in the master plan to be sold as affordable. And just to restate this, there is a total of 468 homes in the community. Approximately 400 of those homes will be affordable. I just want to make that delineation. And within the project is expected to start in June and be completed in 2026. But at the midpoint of the project, which is in 2023, approximately 260 to about 300 of the single family homes will be completed. So wanted to just make that clarification. If the city's loan terms aren't successfully met, the loan will be forgiven. The first phase of a multi-phase development, all 260 affordable homes will be constructed by the end of December 2023, with all phases expected to be fully completed by 2026.
Can you go back to the 260 that are designated to remain affordable and it clarify affordability in AMI terms, please? Just so everyone's clear about who's eligible for those homes.
No problem.
Madam Chair, there's a slide that's upcoming, I think, that will cover exactly your question.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you.
This is the first project under the city's large tract development initiative. The developer approached HCDD with a proposal and detailed plans along with a request for gap financing for infrastructure. The amount of $3,245,840 will be allocated from TIRZ bond funds and $1,547,388 from the annual TIRZ Affordable Housing Fund for a total amount not to exceed $4,793,228. This shows the total project cost, sources, and uses. It's a total infrastructure cost of $27,928,488. City of Houston Housing Department allocation is $4,793,228. And just want to identify as well, City of Houston Public Works Department through their DPC, which is Department Participation Contract Reimbursements, has an allocation of $3,639,060.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize, Madam Chair. Anderson, I was referencing a different slide deck, so
I will explain it, Tom. That's fine. All right. So, and I think that takes us through the end. But to answer your question, Chairwoman Thomas, so in terms of AMI, we do have at least 100 units that will be between your 30% to 80% AMI ranges.
Mhm.
300 units that will be between 81% to 120% AMI, and 68 units potentially could go above your 120% AMI ranges.
Okay, perfect, wonderful. And I just wanted to have that shared for the purpose of being noted for the committee, and just to encourage colleagues, if you have not had an opportunity to meet with Habitat for Humanity for them to explain Robbins Landing and to show you that development, I want to highly encourage you. It'll all make sense what he's presenting today based on that engagement. And so on this slide, can you identify the forgivable amount on this one? Is it the 4.7?
That's the 4793. That is actually our investment. And the way the affordability works, there will be an opportunity for all these homes, since they are affordable, to go through one of any of our programs, whether it's our home buyer assistance program or home buyer choice program, and through closing the homes through that model or through that option will allow us to ensure the affordability for those homes. In the Houston Community Land Trust case, that's long-term affordability. And in the home buyer assistant choice case, the affordability is based on the $30,000 additional down payment that will be put towards the home on the back end, which comes with a 5-year affordability period.
All right, I was speaking more to the loan forgiveness portion of on this slide.
Yeah, Madam Chair, the $4.8 million is the money that's coming from us as a direct investment that will be forgiven. And then further down at the bottom, you see the program that's known as a developer participation contract reimbursements. That comes through HPW. That's additional money that is reimbursed because they are building affordable homes. So on the front end, it's the combination of those two amounts that give you the total investment from the city. And then when each home buyer comes in, as Mr. Stout mentioned, they can be bringing either the $30,000 home buyer assistance or the community land trust option that he flagged earlier.
Right. Okay, so it's the 4.7. Okay, it's just bundled into one.
And I'll flag that this is one of our lowest investments on a per door basis of, I believe, just under $13,000 a door.
Right.
So gives you the kind of leverage that we seldom see. And kudos to Habitat for having the vision, going out and purchasing this property some years ago. That's a big part of what's making this so affordable.
Wonderful. There are no questions in the queue, Mr. Stout. Surprisingly, this is very good work. Thank you for presenting. Councilmember Robinson has a comment.
Just a quick one, and I want to second what you've said, Madam Chair, with encouragement to our colleagues to check this presentation out. And I know we have a couple of speakers, one who I think will be speaking on this item, and just want to add my perspective, how well designed this is. It, as the director has said, kudos for the early investment and taking down the land back when it was affordable, but also the long-term investment of high-quality design and an integrated land use plan that is really, really sharp and great. And I think it bodes well for the neighborhood, the district, and the city of Houston. So kudos.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Stout, for that. And so this is going to move directly into director comments. Director McCaslin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the speakers. Let me just flag the connection between the Robbins Landing piece and the $46 million coming from the TERS bond. That's how this is largely going to get funded. And we anticipate bringing more of these kinds of large-scale single-family homeownership opportunity developments forward, as we've seen, as Mr. Stout mentioned, the success of the first ones that we funded. Yep. And then, I know that we are often deep in the weeds on the bureaucratic details of how we get this money from HUD down into the hands of our partners who can actually implement the affordable homes. But I just want to give another shout out to Mark Eichenbaum, Mike Nichols at the Coalition for the Homeless, his entire staff, and then the staff of every organization that works with the Way Home to make this possible. That's what makes it work, and I appreciate your kind comments to Melody Barr and her team. This has been a rough year because they are a big part of that significant increase in our spending that's going out the door, and they've stood it up. They've been in here in a safe, socially distant way, making sure the payments get made. So Melody, everyone on your team, thank you for the work that you've done on that. Let me start with just a word about the rental assistance program. I know that this is a high priority given that we remain in a pandemic situation. And so our partnership with the county on rental assistance continues to go well. Either paid or committed, almost $45 million. And that puts us about 30% of the way through the funding that has been brought forward by both the city and the county. So tremendous, tremendous work there. And thank you to Catholic Charities. Thank you to Baker Ripley. Thank you to all of our partners who are doing the navigations for this. If you want more details on the navigators in your area, go to houstonharrishelp.org. And you can click on the navigator button at the very top, and that will show you a map of where your closest navigators are for families seeking rental assistance. Applications are still going and forward, and thank you, Melody. She just put the link in the chat, so you have it there. Applications are still being accepted, and the work continues to move forward. Part of the work that Melody's team, or Ms. Barr's team, has stood up is a real focus on the eviction court. And I want to pause and just communicate some concerns that I have where justices of the peace apparently do not understand the requirements of our program.
Right.
Landlords seem to have some confusion around the requirements of our program. And while I think the tenants have a better understanding, there may be some confusion on the tenant side about what our program does. If you receive funding from either the city or the county, and the requirements are the same, so it does not matter. If you receive funding from us, within 5 days, the landlord has agreed to waive all interest, waive all late fees, and dismiss the eviction, any eviction proceedings or notices to vacate. Those are the terms. And I want to emphasize the importance of this. While our primary client here is the tenant, a secondary beneficiary of this program are the landlords across the city who have also been hard hit during the pandemic. And so with average payments going out over $3,600 per tenant, with more than 12,000 families already paid or committed through this program, we need complete cooperation from both our landlords, the attorneys who represent them, and the justices of the peace who ultimately make the determination around eviction. I say that because just this last week, actually it was at the end of last week, we received notice of a tenant for whom we had paid over $6,000. Where an eviction went forward. Fortunately, we found out about that tenant. The tenant was spot on in representing herself, saying, why would the city or the county pay this money just for you to turn around and evict me?
Right.
That was exactly the right question to be asking, because we won't. We were on the phone with the landlord, again, explaining their obligations, and with the landlord's attorney. And fortunately, they walked through the motion to vacate the very next day, keeping that tenant housed. And so on the money going out the door, this is an incredibly successful program. And as we stand up the other support services around this program, I just want to flag for everyone in the community that we are getting eyes on every eviction moving through, flagging if we've already paid for them, and making sure that none of our obligations are being violated, or none of the landlord's obligations are being violated. And if we haven't already paid for them, if they're already in the application process, or if they need to get in, quickly moving them in. I'll flag one more item. Some of the case managers with one of our new nonprofits was actually in eviction court working with landlords, and with 16 families were able to obtain stays, 30-day stays to get them moved through. This is where we are going to be pivoting our attention. We're a few weeks away from having all of the data pieces set up, but within a couple of weeks, we will have this automatized, so it won't take a referral to me and a phone call from me to stop an eviction that shouldn't be happening, but those flags will happen automatically. And we are looking forward to participating with landlords who show the same willingness to reverse their mistakes when they find out about them, and hopefully not make the mistakes in the first place. So to that impact, if there are opportunities, we've asked for an opportunity to educate the justices of the peace. I'm waiting for a response back on that. We're looking for opportunities to educate landlords and their attorneys, and we are grateful for the Houston Apartment Association in terms of their willingness to collaborate on that kind of education. And then for the tenants, we'll be doing additional work with Baker Ripley Catholic Charities to get the word out to the tenants about behavior by their landlords that would be a violation of the terms of the agreement, right, and where to report that violation. Our call center at the housing department is ready to take reports of violation, either of the CDC order that is still in effect nationwide, or violations of the rental assistance. And anyone can call 832-393-0550. I hope everyone understands the passion that we feel in the housing department, and this is top to bottom, about ensuring that we are not lifting this heavy load just to have landlords turn around and evict them, the tenants, and for the thing that we are trying to prevent from actually happening. So we're grateful for the participation. So many landlords have been so patient, have worked with their tenants. We know that we appreciate those landlords, and to those who haven't, let me just say we encourage you to get on board, because if there are violations here, at a minimum, we'll be reversing the payment. And more importantly, we're going to be trying to keep that tenant in place. So thank you for allowing me to just comment on that as we move forward. And so we can go through the slides that we have, just some quick updates for you.
Well, hold on, Director, before we move forward with this, I have a series of questions regarding that, but Councilmember Shabazz is in the queue. And she has a question for you regarding your update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And certainly thank you, Director McCaslin. I wanted to ask a question because I have been contacted about tenants in the CUNY homes. Are they eligible for rental assistance? Because I'm told that the checks are being received and being sent back. So I don't know, what that is about, or if that's accurate. But if you could update me and let me know so that I can be knowledgeable of this.
Would be happy to do that. And what I'll do is get you a connection over to Mark Thiele. CUNY Homes, as you're aware, is a Houston Housing Authority development. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know that there's other funding that is being used to catch those tenants up. And so let me connect you with him so that he can give you the exact details on that, because again, I received some of those same questions, and because it's another organization, I want them to be able to give you the information directly.
Okay, I'm actually getting ready to call him right now about another matter, so I can reach out to him and ask him that as well. I just didn't know if you had any insight on that as well. So thank you so very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
No, for sure. And that's a follow-up to my, Bunny Trail, to my question was really about the guidance around these funds. And I think I shared this with you offline. And so my office partnered with, and a variety of offices partnered for rent relief pop-ups in our districts, and so many individuals that were impacted with financially in different ways. It was confusing around their eligibility, similar to those that are on the Housing Plus voucher. And so are y'all going to be able to provide data on individuals that applied and what their impact was, or why, their qualifications, because it's that would be helpful to kind of get a sense of how these individuals are coming to this program.
Certainly, and we'll work with you, similar to what we've done in the prior programs, to work with you to gather the data sets that are necessary as we move into this program. And to be able to process that both in terms of what our total application pool is, as well as looking at the fallout. That's an incredibly important data piece. It's not just how many, the 12,000 families who get served, but we need to be focused on who doesn't get served and why. That's part of the reason why we've tried to streamline this, as well as make sure that folks are connected to the navigators. And so if you run into an instance of someone who's having a challenge getting qualified, the best thing to do is connect them to one of the navigators that we've hired. County has hired another set of navigators, and so these are spread throughout the city as well as the county. That's why the HoustonHarrisHelp.org is likely the best location, because it will tell you, regardless of whether it's a city or county navigator, who you're closest to, regardless of whether you live in the city or the county. And so this is a joint author and operated program, and Ms. Barr just put the link directly to the navigator map that will have all of those details.
And thank you for that. And then you mentioned the navigators and working with the JPs in their court. Are they all pivoting towards that? Because I know there was some good work that was happening in several of the JPs' work, because they were actually there or on the Zoom. So is all of them doing that now?
So not all of the navigators. Many of the navigators, our goal with the majority of the navigators is to catch folks before the notice to vacate comes, before they get into eviction court. And so the primary group of navigators remains, and the navigators that you'll see on the map remains a service that is available without barriers. They can be in eviction court, and if they are, then they'll get referenced over to the right location, but they don't have to be there in order to get assistance. We do have a team of folks who are going to be focused exclusively on the eviction court, and so that's where they're going to be getting the referrals, or from the other navigators as they move forward. So that we'll have more to report on that next month as that process really gets ramped up.
Sure. And I know from my office, we have been, for landlords that reach out, we have been sending the link and the information for them to facilitate getting those the navigators for their tenants. And we also have had experiences where they have removed they vacated the eviction, and because they knew they were in process of receiving the rent, because we have been getting those dollars out fairly quickly. So I appreciate that. And we have no other comments in the queue regarding your previous update. So you can continue if you like.
Great. So I'll just go through the next slides, again flagging that our virtual office hours continue. This is a presentation or a slide that you see every month. Sure. And if we can go to the next slide. Our virtual community meetings for our annual action plan went off without a hitch. Lots of technology, as you can see, and you'll be seeing that annual action plan that goes up to HUD every year this Wednesday on your council agenda. This was the public meetings that were held as part of that. You can keep moving through the slides. It took me a minute to recognize that shaggy-haired guy on the left there. Our rent assistance legal aid drive-through, I think this may have been one of the events that you were referencing, but the opportunity for people to gather information about how they get both the legal assistance they need as well as the rental assistance in a virtual setting, very safe. You can see folks driving through getting information. Let's keep going through these next few slides. Lots of photos on them, I believe. And more of the folks helping our fair housing workshop for landlords and property managers. Again, something that was held virtually by our team. Lots of virtual work that's ongoing as we move forward. If we can keep going. One of our multifamily developments. This is just outside of downtown. Actually, depending upon how you count it, it's south of Buffalo Bayou, but right there on McKee Street. I'm sorry, just north of Buffalo Bayou, right on McKee Street, with great views of downtown, which you'll see in a minute. This is one of our developments, again, funded by our DR17 Harvey funds from HUD. Yep. And so you can see we're not just passing or shuffling papers and passing ordinances. These are real homes on the ground that for the next 40 years are going to be serving families who need affordable homes to stay.
So can I just add that I will wear 2 masks, but I'm ready to go to some of these groundbreaking and tour, and whenever Anderson kicks off some of his single family, if we can extend that to the committee to show up to these things, because you're right, we just get to see it from the language and paperwork of agreeing to pass these ordinances, and we haven't had an opportunity to really see the fruits of the labor and the work from the department. So whenever those are available, please extend those invitations.
That sounds great, and we are looking forward to being able to begin rolling those out. I think I get my second shot this Friday, so as our team gets vaccinated and as our partners get vaccinated, this is something that you'll be seeing a lot more of, still properly socially distanced and with masks, as you say, but you'll be getting those invitations, and we look forward to celebrating with you.
Yeah.
If we could just go on to the next one, a couple of home repairs that you can see. We can just scroll through these photos and I'll let you look at them more closely in the future. But beautiful homes for folks who really had an unlivable home previously that was torn down and built fresh. And then the remaining are the standard report outs from our various divisions. I'll let you review those at your leisure. And so with that, I'll just pause and answer any questions you may have.
We don't have any in the queue regarding your update. The updates regarding our single family home repair they've been really consistent. And so I think once we get the opportunity, once we're all vaxxed, to come out there and start seeing that and our, CLT homes and all of that, it will just be exciting times, and we'll be able to put our eyes on these projects, but it looks healthy. And can you just remind the committee around those TERS, around how funding the single family home repair program and how some of those dollars will.
Certainly. So this is a good lead into a piece of news that just was shared with our team yesterday. Every year we have a fairly tight spending timelines for our annual CDBG funds from HUD. And this is a deadline that, a lot of jurisdictions struggle with. We certainly have been a jurisdiction that has struggled with it in the past. And during COVID, you saw HUD issuing a lot of waivers for folks. We didn't have a waiver on this spending deadline, but single family home repair, the program you see in front of you, largely funded by these annual CDBG funds. And thanks to the great work of Anderson Stout and his team, we met that deadline ahead of schedule. We met it in the middle of COVID, in the middle of telecommuting, in the middle of a lot of other challenges, rental assistance coming through our department, all of the stressors that we have in a given year, plus a lot more. And we're excited that this was met in a fair and square way by putting people back into their homes, repaired or reconstructed. So that's a large source of the funding. It will remain a large source. You'll see the CDBG funds coming forward in next year's budget. And we are looking for other opportunities to continue to add to the repair and reconstruction. Even as we pivot to new home construction, that is not something that we'll be leaving behind.
Wonderful. We have no questions or comments for you in the queue.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair, and it's always a pleasure to meet with you.
Absolutely. So thank you for the wonderful presentations. Nashawn, do we still have our public speakers on with us?
Yes, Brennan is not on, but Allison is.
Okay, wonderful. Miss Allison Hay with Habitat for Humanity, are you with us? Miss Allison, hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Ma'am. Yes.
Oh, this technology. I'm here.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm grateful to be able to speak to this body today. My name is Allison Hay, and I'm the Executive Director of Houston Habitat for Humanity. In Houston, our stock of affordable, healthy homes continues to be diminished by each natural disaster that strikes our city. Older historic neighborhoods where Black and brown Houstonians have continued to raise their families continue to have the greatest impact through these disasters, and they therefore need more affordable, healthy homes. Houston Habitat has made a commitment to increase the number of affordable, healthy homes in Houston, and our Robbins Landing development will allow our organization to build more homes in a shorter period of time, while also providing the neighborhood amenities that everyone deserves, regardless of income. And today, I just am grateful that I'm able to thank Mayor Turner, the members of the Housing and Community Affairs Committee, Tom McCaslin, and his wonderful staff of the Housing and Community Development Department for recognizing the transformative work of Houston Habitat that we're undertaking and for considering funding for this innovative development that we believe will be life-changing for the neighbors and friends of East Houston. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your comments, and thanks for joining us. Mr. Sander, are you with us on the call?
He isn't on the call.
He is not. Okay, thank you, Nashawn.
You're welcome.
Well, that concludes the remaining of our agenda. Mr. Vice Chair, take us away.
Well, Madam Chair, it's been a great meeting. Thanks for organizing us so well and preparing for this meeting full of great information. But before we adjourn, I'd like to remind everyone that our next Housing and Community Affairs meeting will be held on May the 18th, 2021. That's Tuesday, of course. And our offices will be sending out additional information, in particular, Office of Chair Thomas. And so we'd like to thank everyone again for being here today. And since there are no other comments or questions in the queue, Madam Chair, we are adjourned.
Thank you much.